I'll start at the beginning. I was born in 1975 now. In 2017, I had a motor vehicle accident. I fell asleep driving and my truck flipped over and I was ejected. Um, I ended up becoming paralyzed from my chest down and um, I had to go undergo like a recovery period, and then which was about a year in and out of well, not even in and out in nursing homes, and then about another year staying in a nursing home because I couldn't find accessible or affordable housing. So I was living in Atlanta, Georgia at the time, or I was staying out there quite often. But after and my accident happened there, but when it happened, I moved back home because I had family and friends and a nice support system here, right? Um, and so this is the place that I wanted to be, where I wanted to have my recovery done. And it was in Worcester when I came back, but I ended up having to find a place out in Southbridge because even though my wife at the time had Section 8, and I had something called the waiver program. Not sure if you're familiar with that program through Massability. And so they pray that they pay for a lot of different resources like trips, not just to doctor's appointments, but just leisure time trips as well. Um, and um, and so at the time, you know, with Section 8, they were willing to pay for a ramp to be built at, someone's, house with the landlord's permission. And landlords still weren't willing to do that, even though they didn't have to pay for the ramp. We had a Section 8 voucher, as well as um, this program was willing to make any modifications within the home that were necessary, like widen doorways or, whatever they needed to do. Had no expense to the landlord as well, which brings value to the property. Um, and I had, letters of reference um, from Massability, from at the time Center for Living and Working, where I was going to be receiving my PCA services from. So everyone was supporting, but I could not find a place in Worcester. So through a friend of a friend, I was able to find a small apartment out in Southbridge, Massachusetts, which is more southern Worcester County, and actually, I guess southwest a little bit. Um, and I mean, I was grateful, definitely grateful for the apartment, so I was able to get out of the nursing home. But I knew no one in Southbridge. Um, Once I was discharged from the nursing home, it was March 6, 2020. 2 weeks later, I believe, COVID hit Worcester County. And so the nursing home that I was at had like 15 cases when I called back after a couple of weeks. So I was very fortunate. I was very fortunate to have PCAs ready to work when it was time for me to come out. Um, Unfortunately, I went through a divorce immediately after I was discharged. Um, and uh, my caseworker, Susan, man, a wonderful lady. She somehow was able to get me a two-bedroom voucher like in a matter of 6 or 8 months. And yeah, I know. And people are waiting years, so many years for one of those. But I was blessed to get one out of Southbridge Housing, which allowed me to move around Massachusetts. So that was great. I was able to stay in the apartment, or keep the apartment as my ex-wife moved out, and my 11-year-old son stayed with me. So now I'm paralyzed, dealing with, I had bed sores when I got out, in a small apartment where I literally would go from my bed to my chair. I couldn't even do a 360 in that apartment. That's how cramped it was, just to give you a visual. Um, my son pretty much stayed in his room. My little doggy, she stayed under the table. And like I said, I was from my bed to wheelchair and back to bed. So, but I was grateful, and I was there for 5 years. Those PCAs helped me get through a lot of things. Um, but I also felt isolated because my friends and family were in Worcester. That's where I grew up for 30 years or something. Um, and so that's why I felt safe. I ended up living in Southbridge in a community that, I mean, I was right smack dab in the middle of, like where, drugs are being dealt. There were like fights at least once a week. Sometimes guns were involved, police were coming. I had a couple of buildings burned down next to me. It was pretty scary at times. But being as tough as I am, I was able to just at least survive there. And then I was blessed with an opportunity. Like I couldn't get to any of like my children's functions during the weekends because transportation was really scarce, um, or on the holidays especially. My oldest son lived like 6 miles down the road, and I couldn't even get there during special times. And so I kept saying, I wish I could start a company that could, not just medical appointments, but that can, take people around to do things like other people do, you know. So who cares if we're wheelchair users or we have a disability? We have a right to, excuse me, to contribute to this economy. Excuse me, and we have a right to be able to be a part of society and the community. Um, and so my oldest son ended up becoming a PCA of mine, like the last year that I was in Southbridge. The only good thing about this apartment was that it had a very small ramp that, like, if you could picture, it's about this big, and then it goes straight up, and then just like a very sharp 90-degree turn right into my apartment, and the door was not even adequate enough. So the walls were all messed up when I left, needless to say. Um, but my son and I ended up working on this project, this transportation company, literally from like in my room. He was in a chair next to my bed, and I was in bed, and we had our laptops, and we just dreamt this thing up. And now, 2 years later, Wheels on the Bus Transportation is existing, and it's helping a lot of folks that don't that need to get things done that insurance doesn't pay for. And we're like an Uber for wheelchair users. So, you could call to go to the movies, go out to dinner. We work on weekends. We take people home on the holidays. And my sons are my PCAs, two sons. My youngest son's being groomed. He's turning 18, you know, uh, and I've moved into a fully accessible, brand new condominium unit in Auburn just less than a year ago, where one of my therapists got wind of it through one of her clients and was like, "Hey, you have a voucher. Why don't you try this place?" And I mean, the place is incredible. It has dog parks, has children parks. It has this clubhouse that um, has this big grand room that I can go in, use it anytime. Anybody can from the community. It's 24 hours. It has workout facility. You can rent the grand room. There's meeting rooms with conference tables, and uh, there's a pool outside, and so it's a really cool community to be a part of. And it's newly built, so this summer would be the first time that myself and my pup and my son will be able to really breathe, some really fresh air, and be able to kind of, we're able to let our guards down because uh, the community is so different, just to say the least. But I thank God every day. I feel like He put me in this position, and I say this from the heart. I feel like He sat me down so I could stand up for a lot of things that are going on with the disability community. Transportation is one thing. I actually just joined the first ever advocacy committee. All right, bear with me. Here's the name. For the Massachusetts Permanent commission on the status of disability. Of no, sorry, the status of persons with disability. Wow. Um, and they don't. I don't think they abbreviate it either. um, But we had our first meeting at the State House on the third floor, and it was wonderful. Everyone there was someone that was a CEO, owns something, was a a supervisor. The commission people were there, legislators were there, activists were there, and it just felt, and everyone pretty much, almost everyone, had a disability. And it was a room of, I would say, probably 50 people. Um, and we all represented so many variations of resources that, it felt good to be a part of. And so one thing that, well, the next thing that my sons and I want to focus on is like why isn't every apartment like adaptable and accessible, right? And I have a construction background. That's what I was doing in Atlanta. Uh, probably remodeled, sorry, not remodeled, but I probably they say about 200 homes. I completely just went in and revamped everything in there, from fixtures to walls to even sometimes tearing down, walls and building up other things. So I have a good experience at it, and I know that it doesn't take much to make it adaptable, and it's really not that much expensive, even if it might be even equal to like maybe $1,000 more than building a normally, or like a regular unit like mine's would, if you made it adaptable, you don't have to use any more square footage. You just design the area differently, and that could be somebody's forever home. They move in, they might not need it at the moment, but they'll grow older with time and eventually they will. So I think that's the next thing for us. For me, like you have more of a chance, or yeah, more value because you're available to more, accessible to more people. Let's use that word. You're accessible to more. And the units I live in are 3 floors. There's no elevator. There could be a short elevator. There could be, a ramp that goes up to each floor. There could be a design made just a little differently for, it could be all flat. Um, but anyone could rent it at that point. Um, if you have 20 units and yeah, one unit that's adaptable, yeah, that's definitely not, or accessible. That's not fair for someone who doesn't need it to rent it, right? But if you have 20 units that are adaptable and accessible, then it's, yeah, if you come and you don't need it yet, yeah, you can rent it because you have more for everyone. Like I said, I feel isolated living in Southbridge. And now that I live in Auburn, closer to Worcester, you know, um, and I have my sons and my brother working for me. Then I have 3 young ladies that are awesome that also work for me, and they're more like my friends at this point. And everyone is actually 4 young ladies. Everyone is like works together as a team to make sure that I'm able to thrive and to live my life and run my company, be able to be a dad to my kids and a granddad when I need to be, you know. Uh, it's like night and day. I wasn't able to cook or clean for myself. Now I'm able to like even do my own laundry. But they have a washing machine that washes and dries. You just hit a button and you just let it. You just leave it and forget it, and it and it washes and dries your clothes. And I'm able to brush my teeth, cook my own food. It's wonderful. It's a beautiful feeling. I think everyone that retires, gets to that age, and or has a disability, should still have the same freedom as anyone without a disability. Um, you know, like I said, I just got here less than a year ago, It's going on 9 years since my accident in October. So about 7.5 to almost 8 years of that was a struggle, you know. Um, and I think seeing like I've always been an advocate for, the underserved, and now seeing how underserved this community and this population is and has been, I can't just sit back, especially when I feel like the resources that I have, everyone should be able to, to receive those resources. The van that I have, like that costs a lot, you know. They put over $100,000 worth of conversion into this van, in order for me to drive it, and but you have to be in a nursing home for more than 90 days. And that's the only way you could be eligible. You qualify for it. So I have to go into the nursing homes and let people know, right? So I'm able to do that. And honestly, the Mass Ability program pays for my own private transportation at now, so I don't even have to use my business, you know. And I use that transportation to go around and go to my clubs and things like that. I even have access to them more often because I'm closer to them. You understand? Where before I couldn't call them the day before and say, "Hey, can you take me somewhere tomorrow?" Because I live further out. So yeah, but it's a huge difference, and I'm grateful every day for it. I hold sessions at the clubhouse for other people with disabilities. I have a finance guy that I work with. Um, I'm a life agent for Primerica Financial, and so I bring in my finance guy and my accountant for my business, and I have sessions with persons with disabilities and other people that are interested in finding out what their rights are, how they could, have financial stability, um, not to be afraid of SSI and saving money and all of these things. So as an accountant that does taxes, she could help you put money and save money where it should be and stuff like that. So, um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know where I find the time to do all of this stuff, but as far as housing goes, I'm sorry, I got two things. One would be
Hmm.
um def definitely rent control. There has to be some type of rent control, and something that's agreeable to all parties because, you're driving us out of our homes. And it's not just people with disabilities. It's just crazy everywhere when it comes to rent. And having to come up with first, second, and last, or whatever, first and last in security, that's a lot. That could be like $8,000 sometimes, depending on the size of your family, or better, a month for 2 or 3 bedroom, is easily 2,500 in Worcester, So that needs to happen. And then the second thing would definitely be like all new construction has to be 100% adjustable and accessible somehow. And if it's not 100%, like right now, I know Benji probably explained to you how we fought for 10% an affordable housing trust fund from 5 to 10. And so I'm like, yeah, that's great. That's 100%, victory, but that's still only 10% of 100. And so why can't we start at 100% and see how far he can meet us there? 80% of your housing, 70%, but we got to start looking on the other end of 50%, Um, and so those would be the two things because I see so many homeless people in Worcester. It's heartbreaking, and I have friends, like I said, that are being driven out of their homes, and I just wish everyone had a voucher and could move to where I'm at right now. Really, and yeah, it's ridiculous. So those would be the two things.